You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Michigan. So, Nora?
Yes, Lauren?
Let's get scary.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
It's Nora and Lauren. We're recording on Monday night, which is so strange, but we were recovering all Sunday for my birthday, which was on Saturday.
What did we do, Nora?
We took a party bus to a brewery.
It was so much fun.
Yay! We, screamed Hillary Duff songs, and I'm sure, the 50-year-old guys around us wanted to strangle us, but you know what? We don't care because we haven't gotten to do stuff like that in a year, so.
And everyone's finally vaccinated in our group.
I know, it's insane.
We were finally able to all hang out together.
Yeah, it felt good. It felt good to see everyone and just be around people and not be really nervous. I mean, we're still careful, but we have that added protection, so it's just nice.
It is nice. And we were outside, so that's good too. And the fun thing about where we went was where Joe and I got engaged.
Yes! I love that you guys took a picture there. And
of course.
That was adorable.
All right, so are we ready to get into this?
Yes, this week we are talking about Michigan. Michigan, nicknamed the Great Lakes State, joined the Union on January 26, 1837, and became the 26th state of the U.S. Michigan got its name from the Chippewa Indian word Michigama, meaning large lake. Weird laws in Michigan are, it's illegal to serenade your girlfriend if you live in Kalamazoo. If you buy a bathing suit in Rochester, it must be inspected by the police.
I don't like that.
That seems wrong in many ways. On Sundays, it's illegal for a husband to scold at his wife.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like that should be a law every day.
And I think it's scowl.
Oh, you're right. I cannot pronounce words.
I just don't want anyone to give you shit.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, my heart's racing now. Michigan is the state with the most lighthouses with 124.
I would have thought it was Maine or something.
I
Michigan.
Agree. And that's, when you Google pictures of Maine, I feel like it's lighthouses and really pretty views.
Yeah.
And then I feel like when you Google pictures of Michigan, it's Detroit and all the water issues. You don't think about the lighthouse.
Yeah.
There have been 107 documented sightings of Bigfoot, with the most occurring near Cummins in the Huron National Forest.
Oh, wow. That's also, I would think, Bigfoot would be Washington, Oregon.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow, Michigan, you're impressing us. In 1846, Michigan abolished the death penalty for all crimes other than treason, which was the first state to do so.
Oh, actually, so remember when we recorded Virginia and I said, oh, we still have the death penalty in Virginia? Mm-hmm. Literally a week later, Virginia abolished the death penalty.
No way.
Yeah. I meant to bring it up, but I kept forgetting.
I have such mixed feelings about the death penalty.
I'm in a very gray area.
It's such a tough thing.
We watched this movie in one of my classes where a guy was purposely trying to show that you can easily be put on death row for a crime you didn't commit. And so it was, I can't remember the movie at all, but it was a really intense movie. And he staged a crime to make it look like he was the main suspect, but he actually didn't do anything. And he was put on death row and he was, executed for it. And it was a really intense
And they found
movie.
that he didn't do it?
He didn't want anyone to know he didn't do it, except the one where reporter. It was a really long time ago. It was a really good movie.
You need to tell me the name of that.
I'll try to search for that.
Huh. According to Wikipedia, in Michigan, there have been 4 identified serial killers and 3 unidentified serial killers. According to research from Radford University, Virginia College, and Florida Gulf Coast University, Michigan is in the top 9 states with the largest number of serial killer victims at 381 since 1900.
Dang.
You know what I always think about when I think of Michigan?
What?
Eminem.
Oh, Nora.
Because the movie 8 Mile and Detroit,
That's
I just
such a good
always
movie.
think of Eminem when I hear Michigan.
I love him.
I do too. That movie is beautiful.
Yeah, it's so good.
Okay. So, Lauren.
Okay. So, I'm actually really excited to cover this person. All right, so the Sunday morning slasher quickly became known as possibly one of the most prolific serial killers in American history after being suspected of killing more than 100 women. That man's name was Carl Eugene Watts. He also gave himself the nickname of Coral, and he gave himself the nickname because it is how he pronounced his name Carl, as with his southern drawl. Yeah, I don't like when people give themselves their own nickname. Like that. Like that.
Yeah. He's not allowed to.
No. So Watts was born on November 7th, 1953 to his parents Richard Eugene Watts and Dorothy Mae Young in Killen, Texas at Fort Hood. Watts' father was in the Army as a private first class, and his mother worked as a kindergarten art teacher. So before the age of 2, his parents separated, and Watts moved to Inkster, Michigan with his mother. But there were kind of mixed reviews that I read. Like another source said that his mother moved to Detroit and Watts remained in Texas and lived with his grandmother for a while. So it's kind of all over the place. But sometime after their move in 1962, Watts' mother married a man named Norman Caesar, who worked as a mechanic. Caesar and Dorothy, his mom, had 2 daughters together who would become Watts' half-sisters. So it's possible that he also went to live with his grandma after this marriage, but it's kind of all over the place.
Wait, can I just say something completely random?
Of course.
Do you ever have like things that happen to you and it's like okay, so the name Caesar has come up so many times today.
Okay, yes.
Like this guy at my work, his dog, he just told me his dog's name is Caesar.
That happens to me often.
Like I never hear that name.
When we started doing this, someone was like, are you going to have things behind a paywall? And that day, I heard another podcast talk about a paywall. Someone asked me that question. And then later that day, I was talking to someone else who brought up that word.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have never used that word before today. And I've heard it 3 times.
It's so weird.
It is very weird.
I just had to point that out because after the second time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's the second time. And then I just heard it just now from you. And I was like, what is happening?
It's so weird.
It is. Sorry.
That's okay. All right, so back to Watts and his grandma. So his grandmother was interviewed by the Houston Chronicle, and she told them that even at a young age, Watts enjoyed hunting rabbits and skinning them.
Oh.
So that's always great.
Telltale sign.
Yep. And even at this early age, Watts was described as being a strange boy, but also polite and soft-spoken. So he claimed that around the age of 12 is when he first began to fantasize about torturing and killing young women.
Okay.
When he was 13, he was infected with meningitis, which is the, quote, inflammation of brain and spinal cord membranes, end quote. It can be very dangerous and even life-threatening, and so due to the high fever that comes with meningitis and being out of school because of it, Watts was held back when he was in the 8th grade, and this immediately put him behind in school and with his fellow classmates. So he was receiving failing grades, and at the age of 16 was only reading at a 3rd grade level. So, as you guessed, this caused Watts to be bullied severely while at school.
Wow. Just like Starkweather.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's believed that by the age of 15, he began stalking girls. So at this point, he allegedly had already killed his first victim, but we really don't hear anything about it. It's just alleged.
Mm-hmm.
So just before Watts was 16, on June 29th, 1969, he was arrested for the sexual assault of Joanne Gave, a 26-year-old female. So he had been on his paper route and arrived at the door of Gave. When she opened it, he attacked her. He later told police that the reason behind the attack was, quote, he just felt like beating someone up, end quote. That's terrifying. I've never in my life just thought, that's someone who I'm going to beat up.
And he probably saw her before on his, like, paper route.
Something probably.
That's so creepy.
So he was tried and sentenced to a mental hospital in Detroit called Lafayette Clinic. So remember, he's only 16 at this time, so I think they're treating him more as a juvenile. Mm-hmm. So while at the clinic, Watts had a psychiatric assessment, which revealed that he had an IQ of 68, which showed that he had mild mental impairments. So it was also revealed that he had, quote, delusional thought processes. But an officer later stated that he had interrogated Watts about his crime, and he believed Watts, quoted, to be very, very intelligent with an excellent memory. So during his final review, right before his release, Watts's doctor, Gary Ainsworth, stated, quote, this patient is a paranoid young man who is struggling for control of strong homicidal impulses. His behavior controls are faulty, and there is a high potential for violent acting out. This individual is considered dangerous, end quote.
Wow.
So I don't think you should release someone if they're a danger to themselves or to others. No. But after less than 5 months, on November 9th, 1969, he was released from the clinic. He was somehow able to graduate high school still in 1973 at the age of 19, and even went off to college.
How?
Well, he attended Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee after receiving a football scholarship.
Oh, so he's going to get hit in the head a bunch of times too.
Yeah, because that's always really, really good. So his time in college didn't last long, and after 3 months, he was expelled for stalking and assaulting women. But I also read that another reason for his expulsion was also violent, but a female student had been found brutally murdered, and Watts was a prime suspect. But nothing came of this suspicion, though, because there wasn't enough evidence to actually connect him to this murder.
Try harder.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
After his expulsion, Watts moved back to Detroit. So Watts did end up going back to college after his expulsion, and began attending Western Michigan University, where he was enrolled in a special scholarship and mentoring program that was sponsored by the university. But before this program began, Watts was again evaluated by an outpatient facility, and the staff there determined that he had a, quote, strong impulse to beat up women, end quote, and that he was still a danger. But this case is going to be really annoying. But due to patient confidentiality, no one at Western Michigan University or the authorities were made aware of Watts' evaluation.
Wow.
Yep.
Someone's not doing their job.
It's just like, all the, I get HIPAA rules, I get all of that stuff, but, it's...
That's, crucial.
So many things could have been stopped if he had been, if people had kept an eye on him.
Yeah.
So his horrible crimes began when he was just 20 years old, if we're not counting the one that he potentially did when he was 15.
Yeah.
So on October 25th, 1974, Watts attacked Lenore Nizaki when she answered his knock on her door. She fought back and survived. On October 30th, 1974, Watts tortured and brutally murdered his second victim. His second victim was a student from Western Michigan University named Gloria Steele. She was only 19 or 20 and was found stabbed to death. There were 33 stab wounds found on her body. And so during this case, I will be going over a lot of the victims and the dates that they were found or went missing, because I feel it's very important to highlight the victims as well. So I just want to say that for why I'm naming so many victims.
I got you.
And there were a lot of victims, so I feel like they all need to be honored.
Yeah.
All right, so on November 12th, Watts attacked Diane Williams. She also survived and managed to see Watts' car, which she was later able to report to police.
Oh, good.
So after these 2-3 attacks, he was placed in a lineup and was picked out of the lineup by Nizaki and Williams. He was arrested on assault and battery charges. While in custody, he admitted to attacking 15 women, but would not talk about the Steele murder. Watts' attorney was able to get him committed to the Kalamazoo State Hospital, where he received another evaluation. The hospital psychiatrist later diagnosed Watts with antisocial personality disorder, which is not good.
Yeah.
So the Mayo Clinic defines antisocial personality disorder as, quote, a mental health disorder characterized by disregard for other people. Those with antisocial personality disorder tend to lie, break laws, act impulsively, and lack regard for their own safety and the safety of others, end quote, which pretty much sums up Watts perfectly.
Yeah.
So he ended up receiving a 1-year sentence for the battery and assault charges, and that's it. Yeah. So most of his victims were young women between the ages of 14 and 44. His methods of murder were strangulation, stabbing, bludgeoning, and drowning.
Wow.
Which is weird because usually a serial killer or a killer will have their MO, which is the same way that they're going to commit the crimes. So with him having so many different ones, it's just very scary.
That is. It's like he has different ways of getting that fix or something, which is really
terrifying.
Yeah.
So later he stated that he killed women who had, quote, evil eyes.
I keep thinking that this goes back to his mom in some way.
Yeah, he just hates women.
Yeah.
It is believed that between 1974 and 1982, Watts had murdered dozens of women. So this is one of the parts where I'm just going to go over a lot of them.
Okay.
So October 8th, 1979 in Detroit was Peggy Bochmara, who was 22. She was strangled. October 31st at the Grosse Pointe Farms in Detroit was Jean Klein, who was either 35 or 44 based on the sources, and she was stabbed with a tool similar to a screwdriver. March 11th, 1980 in Detroit was Hazel Knopf, who was 23, strangled. March 31st, Detroit, Denise Dunmore, 23, strangled. April 20th, Ann Arbor, Shirley Small. She was 17, and she was found having been attacked and cut multiple times by what appeared to be a scalpel. She bled to death outside on the sidewalk. May 31st in Detroit was Linda Montiero, 27, strangled. July, Ann Arbor, Glenda Richmond, who was either 20 or 26, was found outside the door to her home, having been stabbed 54 times.
Oh my gosh.
September 14th, Ann Arbor, was Rebecca Huff, who was either 20 or 29, and she was stabbed. Rebecca Greer, who was 20, was found outside the door to her home as well, having been stabbed 54 times, but unsure of the date with that one. October 17th, at Western Michigan University, Patricia Lang was found dead in her car. She was 21, and she had been shot in the head. So all of these attacks had occurred around Ann Arbor within 5 months of each other. So that's really scary. In October of 1979 in Southfield, a Detroit suburb, Watts had been arrested for prowling around, but the charges were dropped.
Oh my gosh.
And he went undetected for almost 8 years as his horrible murders continued. His being undetected was mainly because his murders occurred in different jurisdictions and even in different states.
That's just like the Richmond.
Yep, that's exactly what I thought about.
And like getting away with it because they're not working together.
Yep. So, yeah, I literally put different jurisdictions mean the officers don't talk to each other. His murders weren't sexually motivated, though, which is good, but that means that it left very little DNA. And this is like kind of near the time when DNA was a thing. So he was not suspected by anyone and was just able to fly under the radar. So I didn't include it, but Watts had been married. But by May of 1980, him and his wife had divorced. So I included this because his wife stated that he had been acting strangely during their entire marriage. He had a habit of leaving the house for hours at a time, always immediately after the two of them finished having sex.
Oh my gosh.
So that could be one why his crimes and attacks weren't sexually motivated, because he was getting what he needed from his wife. But it's just icky.
I don't know if maybe she thought he was cheating, but I feel like I would follow him at some point.
Yeah, but maybe she was scared.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he seems like, if you look at pictures of him, he seems kind of like he's a scary dude. So soon after the divorce, murders began popping up in Wisteria, Ontario, up in Canada, which were all very similar to the murders that had occurred in Ann Arbor and Detroit. So in July of 1980, in Windsor, Irene Kondratowiz, who was 22, her throat had been slashed, but she miraculously lived. Sandra Dalpy was 20. She was also stabbed, but also survived. And then Mary Angus was 30. She realized she was being followed and began screaming. So good, which scared away Watts. But he was again picked out of a photo lineup by Angus, but she was unable to say for sure if he was her attacker. He did become the #1 suspect in Ontario, though, after his car had been recorded on video heading to Detroit from Windsor after each attack.
He is literally handing the evidence.
But because no one's talking, they're not connecting anything with it.
Oh my gosh.
In January 1981, the cops began focusing more on Watts. After having already given blood that couldn't link him to any crime scenes, Watts decided that he had enough of all of this, people accusing him, and he just moved to Columbus, Texas, which was just 70 miles outside of Houston.
New area to do it.
So, of course, new murders began popping up in Texas. So this is a little bit longer of a list, but again, I want to give, everyone.
Yeah.
So September 5th, 1981, in Arlington, Texas, Lillian, but other sources named her Linda, Tilly was 22. She drowned in her apartment complex's pool. It was originally ruled as accidental until Watts eventually confessed to it. September 12th. So literally he's doing these really close to each other.
Yeah.
In Houston, Elizabeth Montgomery was 25. She was stabbed while taking her dogs on a walk at midnight. That same day, Susan Wolf, 21, was attacked and murdered outside her home as she was exiting her car, also stabbed.
Oh my gosh.
January 4th, 1982, in Houston, Phyllis Tam was 27. Okay, this is a weird one. She was hanged from an article of her own clothing. And it wasn't until Watts confessed that it was ruled as a homicide. So at first, the medical examiner was unable to rule it out as a freak accident. So he literally just said, it could be a freak accident. We're not really sure what happened.
How?
I'm sorry, what?
Suicide, maybe. Freak accident? Freak accident is like tripping and falling and hitting your head.
Yeah.
It's not tying a rope around you.
This case just made me so mad. So January 17th, Margaret Fossey was 25. She was found in the trunk of her car, and she had died by asphyxiation that had been caused by her larynx being crushed. So a punch to her throat was so bad that it made her asphyxiate.
And they found her in the trunk
of her car.
Do you know that a lot of whenever cops will get an abandoned car that was put on fire, they always check the trunk. That's a thing that they're trained to do.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I know.
Oh, I don't like that. That same day, Julia Sanchez had been changing her tire on the side of the road when Watts pulled over, slashed her throat, and then just left her for dead. But she I'm just not going to say that word. She survived. On January 30th in Galveston, Patty Johnson he tried to slash her throat. I don't believe she died, but another man was imprisoned for this crime until Watts confessed. So I didn't go into that, though. On February 7th in Houston, Elena Samander was 20, strangled. March 20th, Emily LaQuay was 14. She was reported missing in Brookshire, Texas, and it was first thought that she had run away, but her body was found 5 months later. March 27th in Houston, Edith Ledette, who was either 24 or 34. I got 2 different reports. She was either stabbed while jogging or when returning home from a graduation party. And then, okay, this part is terrifying. Later that day, so he had killed Edith. Later that day, he tried to attack a woman named Glenda Kirby, but she escaped because his hands were slippery from the blood that was still on them from the previous murder.
Oh my gosh.
How just dark. Like, I hate it.
First of all, like, did he not have a job?
I didn't, literally not a single thing talked about his job. He had, like, small jobs and, like lumber yards kind of things like that, but nothing like 9 to 5 kind of thing, it didn't seem like.
I wonder if his wife worked a lot, and so that's why maybe she didn't notice.
Well, she was divorced at this point.
Oh,
because this is all happening in 81, 82, and they got divorced in 80.
Okay.
Yeah. So March 31st, Mary Castillo was 20, also strangled. April 2nd, Christine McDonald went missing while hitchhiking near Rice campus. April 5th, Suzanne Searless was 25. She was missing, then later found strangled. This part's bad. Watts hadn't been sure at the time if he had killed her, so he held her head underwater to, like, finish it.
Oh my gosh.
April 15th, Carrie Mae Jefferson was 32. She went missing after her night shift, then was later found strangled and stabbed. April 16th, Yolanda DeGracia, either 21 or 26, was stabbed in her home.
Wow.
May 4th, Sherry Strait was a high schooler. She was found 3 days after she had gone missing with her mother's car. So she went out driving and went missing, and both her and the car were found. May 23rd, Gloria Cavalis, who was 32, was found dead in a dumpster. So he was finally arrested on May 23rd, 1982 in Houston after breaking into the home of 2 young women, Lori Lister and Melinda Aguilar, and he had attempted to murder them. So Watts had tried to drown Lori in her bathtub, but she was saved by a neighbor. That same day, Michelle Madej was found, having been drowned in her bathtub.
He is so sick.
So Watts had lived in Michigan until a year before his arrest, and after his arrest, the police were able to begin linking him to the murders of at least 10 women and girls in Michigan. So at least we're making some moves.
Yeah.
So at this point, he was currently in jail in Huntsville, Texas, after being arrested for the break-in and attempted murders. But prosecutors feared that they didn't have enough evidence to actually connect and convict him to any of the murders there. So they arranged a plea deal on August 9th, 1982. Okay, so this part made me so mad and shocked me. So the plea bargain was, if Watts confessed to his crimes and gave full details for all of his crimes, and recognize they use the word crimes here, not murders, crimes, he would be granted full immunity for his murder charges and would instead just be charged with burglary with intent to murder.
You beg my pardon?
You beg my pardon. Yeah. So this charge, because it wasn't murder, this charge only carried a 60-year sentence. So intent to murder, in my opinion, should carry a much, much longer sentence. Like, intent to murder.
This is why, like, family members go crazy of these victims and just finish the deed and handle it, you know?
So, surprise, surprise, Watts quickly took this deal and confessed to attacking 19 women, 13 of whom he murdered. The judge who sentenced Watts to the 60 years was quoted saying, quote, "I hope they put you so deep in the penitentiary that they'll have to pipe sunlight to you," unquote.
Well, at least the judge, but I mean, I wouldn't have accepted that plea deal if I was the judge. Like, I agree with him, but I would have been like, no, get that out of my court. I don't know how
they did this.
I don't know how it works either. I'm just so angry.
Thankfully, this was all happening in Texas. Michigan didn't agree to this deal, so the charges against Watts remained open there. So overall, Watts confessed to 40 murders, but it's also implied that this number could be close to 80 victims in total, and this is mind-blowing when you think about it. But like a pathetic, I'm sorry, piece of shit, Watts would not confess to all of these murders because he didn't want to be seen as a mass murderer.
Well, buddy, it's a little
Like-
late.
I'm sorry. What?
I know.
Oh my God, I was just
You
doing
are
these
what you
notes.
do.
Oh my God, this just made me so mad. But police are still convinced that Watts is responsible for an additional 90 unsolved murders. So he was sentenced to 60 years, but while he was serving his not enough time in 1983, the Texas Court of Appeals looked into one of his crimes. So Watts had tried to drown Lori Lister in the bathtub. At the time of his trial, he had not been informed that the bathtub and water he had used were considered to be deadly weapons. So because he hadn't been informed of this, he was reclassified as a non-violent felon. A non-violent felon?
Okay, if it's non-violent, then someone should drown him in the bathtub. Because it's not violent.
But a non-violent felon who had committed brutal murders is a non-violent felon? What? And now, because of this, he was eligible for early release. So Texas at this time allowed nonviolent felons to have their time in jail counted differently as long as they were well behaved. So 1 day served in jail counted as 3 days. So you serve 1 day and you kind of get 2 free days. So, you know, say you're in there, well, I'll get there in a second. So of course, he was a model prisoner. And due to the stupid rules Texas had, he was eligible for release on May 9th, 2006. So only 22 years into his 60-year sentence.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the 1 day served with the 2 days free.
Yeah.
So this caused a public uproar, obviously. And this law was later changed in the Texas Constitution, but nothing could be done at the time to keep him in jail because at the time, this was allowed by law. So he's just, So now Watts is completely done with Texas. He did his time. He's out. He has immunity in Texas for the 12 murders he admitted to. He's done in Texas.
Did he learn his lesson?
Well, remember he was facing those open charges in Michigan.
Yeah.
So in 2004, Mike Cox, the Attorney General in Michigan, went on national TV to make a statement asking for anyone with information about Watts to please come forward. They wanted information that would be able to convict him of any murder in order to ensure that he would be in jail for life. So here's where a brave man named Joseph Foy comes in. He was from Westland, Michigan. He stated that in December 1979, he saw a man who matched Watts' description murder the 36-year-old Helen Dutcher. Dutcher had been stabbed 12 times. So I'm not sure what it meant by he saw a man. Like, did he see the murder? But then I read somewhere that it said he saw the woman fall. So I don't know, like, if he didn't go out. I don't know.
So he probably saw like something to where maybe it was weighing on him or something.
So yeah, I read somewhere he saw the stabbing and saw her fall, but he didn't call the cops. I don't really know. But he stated that he knew it was Watts by his eyes. So I don't know how close he was if he saw the eyes.
Yeah.
But he described Watts' eyes as being, quote, evil and devoid of emotion, end quote. So before his trial in the Oakland County Circuit Court in 2004, this is good. Officials asked the trial judge if he would allow the 12 murder confessions from Texas to be entered into evidence. So the cases that Watts had the immunity from. Surprisingly, the judge agreed because he had immunity in Texas, but not in Michigan.
Yes.
So his defense tried to say that this would take away his right to a free trial because it would be in the jury's mind and cloud their judgment.
Well, they need to know all the facts.
Yeah. I believe it's the prosecutor. I get confused with defense and prosecutor, but they said that it would show a trend and a pattern. So I don't like when there's a court case and they're like, oh, we're just going to keep things out about their past. Like, I think anything about their past shows what kind of character they are and what kind of person they are.
Yeah.
It should 100% be included.
And it would be different if it's like, oh, he accidentally hit someone with his car like 20 years ago.
I think it all depends.
It is murders.
Yes. Like continuous murders over years should 100% be included. Like maybe if you were stupid when you were a kid and you stole a candy bar, like that shouldn't go into your adult life. But murders?
Yeah.
So he was immediately charged with the first-degree murder of Helen Dutcher, and on November 17th, 2004, a Michigan jury convicted him of that murder. Good. So I believe this was due in large part to Foy's eyewitness testimony. So Michigan's first-degree murder charge carries a mandatory life sentence without parole. Finally.
Yeah.
So he was finally sentenced to life imprisonment on December 7th, 2004. But only 2 days later, authorities then tried to convict Watts of the murder of Gloria Steele, who had been stabbed back in 1974.
Mm-hmm.
The trial for Steele's murder began on July 25th, 2007 in Kalamazoo, Michigan, with closing statements occurring the next day, where Watts received a guilty verdict.
Wow.
On September 13th, 2007, he was sentenced to another life sentence without the possibility of parole. So he was sentenced to the maximum security prison in Iona, Michigan, which is named the Iona Correctional Facility. So unfortunately, Watts didn't spend nearly enough time in prison because just 8 days later, he died of prostate cancer in a hospital in Jackson, Michigan.
Ooh.
In the end, Watts admitted to 80 more murders that had occurred in Michigan and Canada, but refused to give details, as now he didn't have any immunity for them. So Joe Tilley, the father of Linda, who had been drowned, stated, quote, "Forgiveness cannot be bestowed when forgiveness is not sought. This is a confrontation with pure evil, with principalities and the powers of the air," end quote. So I thought that was kind of, saying like, I totally get not being able to forgive. If the other
person is like, I don't care that I did all this, then it's like, you know what? Then I don't care about your life. Have fun in hell.
Yep. So if we were able to count all of his suspected murders and what people are trying to connect to him, he would be one of the most prolific serial killers in history. And that is Carl Eugene Watts. This case made me so
I'm
mad.
Speechless.
Like,
and he really got what he deserved what he got.
And I was going through, I used Murderpedia for like this whole thing because Murderpedia is just incredible.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through it and I'm reading it and my jaw is just dropped the whole time. I was so mad. That's why I wrote it like 900 times in my case, that it's infuriating.
I know. And I'm glad you were like, this is bad. Like, I need that heads up, because I would be like, oh, like in the microphone, like I need to know.
I had to write it because I was so mad. I was like, I'm going to say this at the time, but I need to put it in writing now because I just need to vent it somehow.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, 2000, he just died less than 2 decades ago. Like, that is absurd.
And it's so scary. Like, he didn't have a type. It was just women between 14 and 44, which, like, having a type is never a good thing, but like it just makes it scary when it's so random.
Yeah, because it helps find the person if there's some sort of pattern. And then the other thing is, like, his crimes were so, like, usually stabbing someone 30 times, it's like it's something personal. Like, you did something to them.
Yep.
But to really, that's a lot of rage.
And strangulation too, they always use that as one of the person knew who their victim was because it's such an intimate crime.
Yeah.
And so with it's just so scary.
So crazy.
I was telling Joe about it. I was like, listen to this guy. And I told him a little bit about it. And I was like, that's why I don't take our dog out for walks on my own.
Yeah. That's why I walk anywhere, like even sometimes during the day with my key between my fingers, because I'm scared.
You're supposed to put it, were you the one who told me you're supposed to put it in the little webbing between your thumb and your forefinger?
No.
Because if you put it between your fingers and you go to like stab, it can damage your fingers. So if you put it in that little webbing and you use it more as a stabbing motion, you don't get hurt as bad.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also,
that's really good to know.
Buy pepper spray. It's at Target. I have a nice cute little pink pepper spray that I carry with me.
Yeah. Important.
Oh, all right, Nora. What do you have for us?
Okay. Well, this week, I am talking about the Michigan Bell Telephone Company. So the story begins in 1907. Warren and Virginia Randall were a young couple who moved from Detroit into the old Judd-White house in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. The house was huge and was once considered a prestigious mansion, but the house had lost its appeal over time because it wasn't well taken care of. There were people constantly moving in and out, and it was used as a boarding house, so the people living there like didn't do any upkeep because they didn't own the place, so it was just really run down. But Warren and Virginia moved in, and the home seemed to have a more bright future where it could get some, TLC, maybe a fresh paint of coat.
A fresh paint of coat.
Yeah, fresh coat of paint. I wrote it right. I just read it wrong. Dang it. Warren Randall had a steady job as a brakeman for the GR and Indiana Railroad. He made good money there. He and his wife were happy, but unfortunately Warren got into a bad accident which changed everything.
Oh.
Yeah, he was involved in an accident at the rail yard at work. He was run over by a train.
Oh.
Yeah, he survived, but not unscathed.
Yeah.
He tragically lost his leg in the accident, and so after the accident, he was at home a lot. He could no longer work, and He, by the way, was like really successful at this job, made a lot of money.
Yeah.
The house they lived in was really big and nice, but all of that, he couldn't make a living anymore.
Yep.
So he couldn't work and he would have to walk with a wooden leg for the rest of his life. As a result, Warren's self-esteem drastically plunged and he was definitely affected not only physically but psychologically by the accident.
I mean, I can only imagine.
I know. Yeah, that would be really hard. Warren became convinced that his wife Virginia was seeing other men. He accused her of having affairs, which Virginia profusely denied. And that led to more arguments. So definitely it became like very, very toxic in that house.
Yeah.
Apparently, and I laughed so hard when I read this.
Oh, no.
But he accused her of liking men who had more legs than he did.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, so then you consider almost every man a threat. Like,
oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Grasping at straws there for something.
Really? Like, not even like, oh, a guy who has like nice eyes. No. Any man with 2 legs.
Maybe pickings were slim then.
Maybe.
I really don't know.
I don't either, but, having 2 legs, you better watch out for Warren.
Right.
So he was delusional, and their fights got so bad that on multiple occasions, local police were called out to break up their heated fights. At one point, cops found Warren chasing Virginia down an alley with a razor blade in his hand, and Virginia could not handle it anymore.
Well, I don't blame her because that's terrifying.
It really is. I mean, he was like, I feel like anytime she would like walk into the house, it was like walking on eggshells because you don't know what he's going to think of her doing. Like,
don't know what's going to set him off.
Exactly. And, I think the leg probably had like some to do with that, but I think he also had some deep issues beforehand and then it just came out more once that happened. So Virginia loved her husband, but she couldn't handle how absolutely insane he was acting and she feared for her life. So several months after the razor blade incident, late in the summer of 1910, Virginia filed for divorce and left Warren, which, thank God. Given Warren's pattern of behavior post-accident, he did not allow for a peaceful split. He tried to coax Virginia back, and she was like, hell no, and stayed away. But he did manage to convince her to take a buggy ride with him late one afternoon.
Oh no, that doesn't sound good.
I know. I don't know how he convinced her. Maybe he lied. Who knows? Maybe he was like, we need to fill out this paperwork. I just don't know. But it made me think about this cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking about that because it's, so many bad things happened. And if you don't break the cycle, it can end in
so
that.
hard to break the cycle
So
too.
hard. Yeah.
Which is that's the sad part about it because people want to break the cycle, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just researching this, it's very uncommon for someone to leave and then stay away. Like usually they'll go back.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's very unfortunate, but especially in this time, she probably didn't have a job. She depended on him 100%. Yeah. So it was very hard. But the cycle of abuse I wanted to mention, it's building tension. That's the first part of the cycle. Then incident of abuse, reconciliation, and then calm.
Ugh.
Yeah. And there's actually a show called, oh my gosh, what's that show with Reese Witherspoon? And it's like, this main song is like, if you ever want it bad. Oh gosh.
I have no idea.
I cannot think of the name of it.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the women in that show goes through this cycle like many times, and it's so scary.
It is, because then when it's like that cool down period, you think like, okay, that was the last time that's going to happen. Everything's going to be fine from now on.
Exactly. Yeah, and one thing I read online, like I was researching the cycle of abuse because I think it's really important to like know about it.
It is.
And one thing that they said was if you're on this website and you're getting abused, make sure you clear your search
that.
history.
I mean, I hate that people would be on that website, but I love that they're like saying that.
Yeah, and then it was like, call this number, use the phone to get information, don't use the internet because, you're more likely to get
I love
caught.
how they're giving that.
I know. And I was like, you know what? That just shows that they had to deal with that so much. But anyways.
I mean, at least that seems like a very useful tool.
Definitely. I agree. So unfortunately, this time the cycle of abuse ended how it often does in domestic abuse situations. They went on the buggy ride together and ended up back at the Judd-White mansion because he still lived there and she had moved out. And they got in a very heated argument again. But this time, the fight got totally out of control. Warren removed his wooden leg and beat Virginia with it until she laid unconscious.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and this happened in one of the bedrooms in the house. He then stuffed towels into all the cracks in the room that they were in, and he tore a gas light fixture off the wall, and deadly fumes quickly invaded the bedroom. So there was...
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah. There was no clean air getting into the room because he covered all the cracks.
And he was in the room too?
Exactly, he was.
Oh.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And she was unconscious, so she couldn't escape.
Yeah.
She didn't know what was happening. So then Warren decides to slash his own throat using the same razor blade he used the night he chased Virginia down the alley.
Oh my gosh.
Neither Warren nor Virginia were reported as missing.
Was it because they were kind of isolated? Because I feel like with the whole like abuse thing, like he's going to keep her away from her family and friends.
Well, so that's what I thought at first. But then I was thinking about it, and she had left at this point, and she was staying with someone.
Oh, right. You're right.
So I don't know if it didn't say if she was staying with family or friends, but she was out. So I feel like at that point, the secret's out for at least the person you're staying with.
Yeah.
None of her family, no one reported her missing, which to me is heartbreaking because who knows, maybe they weren't talking to her because of divorce was like really a touchy thing at the time, but I couldn't really find information, but I thought that was interesting.
That's sad.
Like sad, yeah. 2 weeks after their final fatal fight, workers at a nearby business began to complain to the health department about a foul stench coming from the mansion.
Oh, no.
Officials from the gas company were sent out to investigate, and obviously when they got there, no one was answering the door, so they broke into the home. Right away, they were hit with the smell of gas and decaying flesh.
Oh, I can't even imagine the mix of that.
I know.
Because, like, you were aware of our stove issues.
Oh, yeah.
But our stove broke, and we had a gas leak. So I came home from work one day and just smelled gas. So I called my mom. I was like, I don't know what to do.
What do I do?
And so she was like, get out of the house, call 911. So that was the fun day. I had 2 fire trucks, an ambulance, 7 firefighters in my house. It was just good fun. Ugh. But just, like, the smell of gas is so distinct. And thankfully, I've never smelled it, but the smell of decay is also like, people say once you smell it, you know what it is. So I just can't imagine that mixture.
The combination would be so... Ugh. I think I would probably get sick if I smelled that.
Yeah.
They went through the house and discovered the locked bedroom, and that's when they discovered the corpses of Warren and Virginia Randall. Their bodies were in such an advanced state of decay at this point, because it had been weeks, that they were only identified by Warren's wooden leg.
Oh,
that dang leg.
Gosh.
Oh, that leg caused so many issues. Well, Warren did, but the leg is always involved.
Yeah.
So they literally didn't recognize who it was, but they knew who he was because of the leg, which is insane. But yeah, so unfortunately, it was a murder-suicide, and the mansion was never occupied by another family again.
I mean, I wouldn't want to occupy something like that either.
I could never. And, you know, did you know houses have to disclose if someone had died in them?
Sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes.
What do you mean?
Some houses, like some states, they don't have to.
I feel like that should be a law.
Good luck looking for houses, Nora.
I need to start reading all the descriptions. I'm house hunting right now, and like, first of all, that's a whole stressful process, but if I fall in love with a house and then find out someone was murdered in it, I cannot. Like,
there's this website, I'm going to have to find it, but you can type in a house and it'll tell you all the things related to that house. Like if there's been drug rings there. Oh, I have to find it. It's so cool.
You have to show me that.
I'll try to find it.
That's so interesting.
But yeah, I think there's also a website. It's literally called something like whodiedinmyhouse.com. And you have to buy a subscription for it. Might not be a bad idea for you and Ian to
that's so interesting.
Have a subscription as you're looking for houses because, yeah, some states do not have to disclose it.
Wow. I'm going to see if Virginia has to disclose it. If they don't, then I'm definitely going to look into that. Oh, yeah. Because I'm not messing with that.
No.
So, obviously, after this murder-suicide, there were destined to be rumors of the house being haunted. Witnesses reported seeing strange lights and hearing loud noises coming from the house. And mind you, these 2 were dead and the house is abandoned. There were also claims of hearing a woman's voice, probably Virginia's, begging for mercy, like screaming, and people could hear it outside. Oh. Others reported hearing the sounds of Warren's wooden leg thumping through the house.
Oh my God.
Again, the wooden leg.
Oh.
The children who grew up in the neighborhood were warned to stay away from the old mansion.
Yep.
And it was clear that no one wanted to live in the house, and no one ever did live there, like I mentioned, so the house sat empty for several years. Eventually, the house was torn down in the early 1920s, and then the Bell Telephone Company built offices in the lot where the home once stood, and they've been occupying the space ever since.
Doesn't sound like it's peaceful.
I know. Even though the house is no longer there and there's an entirely new building, the two ghosts apparently never left. Local residents claim that they've been awakened by a phone call in the middle of the night, only to hear nothing on the other line.
Ew.
Officials traced the calls back. And remember, this is like before caller ID.
Yeah.
So this was revolutionary detective work. They were able to trace the call
Look
back
at them.
to the office. They saw that it came from the office where the mansion once stood. So the telephone company.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Oh, I don't like that.
Also, workers in the building apparently refuse to go into the building late at night ever because they're too scared. And I tried researching who's currently in the building, and I saw mixed reports. One report said that in 2013, the building was transformed into housing and supported facilities for the local homeless population.
See, that's really sweet, but also, like, haunted.
Yeah, but I don't know. I read one article on that, and then everything else I read said that it's still the telephone company. Other people said that now it's an AT&T building, and it has been for like the last decade or so. So
Okay.
if you live in Detroit and you know who's occupying this building, let me know.
Let
'cause
us know.
I literally could not find it anywhere, which is really weird. And then I wanted to just finish off by mentioning the phone number for domestic abuse hotline. It's 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 7233.
Oh, I like that. Like
So-
that you're saying that.
Yeah, I just think it's important. Like, try not to go on the website if you're dealing with that. Try to call, and people will talk you through resources.
Well, dang. This is a good episode. Very intense episode. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Like we'll say at the end of every episode, please send us any stories that you have from your state, any personal stories. We would love to do an episode where we read your stories.
Yes.
So send that to us at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
Also, follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram name is A Scary State Podcast. And after every episode, which all of our episodes air Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, check out our Instagram because we'll post pictures of all the things and stuff we talk about.
And please rate and review us on iTunes. That's what's going to get us noticed, what's going to, get us more listeners, hopefully just, get us out there.
And you know what? Give us a thumbs up on YouTube.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up on YouTube.
There's 6 likes so far, and it's all people we know.
But we'll get there one day.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. And remember, stay scary.
Stay safe.